Today's presentation is on the power of detoxification for multiple sclerosis. I'm always saying, well, nowhere in Western medicine do we talk about this topic. And it's so important. Even our hepatologists, who are liver specialists, don't really think about the detoxification capacity of the liver. But when I entered the world of integrative and functional medicine, it really opened up this whole world of tools and strategies that can optimize body systems that we don't really think about in the same way in Western medicine. So today we're going to talk about why detox is important for MS. We're going to talk about how the liver actually does this work. I'm going to kind of give you a bird's eye perspective of how it works, because I want you to see the role that nutrition plays in this magical set of reactions that happen in the liver. And then we're going to talk about some other strategies beyond nutrition to help support detox. And by the way, you are welcome to chat to each other or to just write whatever comes to mind into the chat. If you have questions for me, please put it in under the button that says Q&A, and then I'll get to them at the end. We'll have some time for that. Okay, so just a quick background on MS, which is an autoimmune condition that's neuroinflammatory. So it's autoimmune, so it involves the immune system, but it also involves the nervous system, because that autoimmunity happens in the nervous system. So you get attack of the myelin, which starts disintegrating, and it slows conduction of messages down nerves. There's this separate thing that also happens called neurodegeneration, where the brain over time can basically lose neurons. And if left untreated, and if we let it progress, then an end stage effect of this could actually be dementia, right? However, the good news is in our generation, with so many therapies available, and I'm talking actually about a lot of pharmaceutical therapies, that's changed a lot. I think we've really done a good job of slowing down progression. So there's autoimmunity and there's neurodegeneration, and we have to think about both of those things. Like, what are the things we could put into place to improve both of those problems? Now, MS is a combination of both genes, right? You have to have the right genes, and those genes have to hang out in the right environment, which is the wrong environment, where the genes can start getting turned on. So it's not enough to just carry genes that predispose you to MS. You also need to have, conditions where there's too much stress, viral infections, exposure to toxins, which we're going to be focusing on today. So these are the things that can start dialing up the genes, and we call that epigenetics. And in an earlier webinar a few months ago, we actually discussed that. It's this process of autoimmunity doesn't happen overnight, even though you might feel like it happened overnight, right? Something stressful happened, and then maybe a week later you lost your sight, or all of a sudden you lost the strength in your arm. Well, that autoimmune process has been brewing under the surface for years, if not decades, and it's slowly been getting dialed up over time. I think of it as multiple hits on the timeline, where, for example, you might get an infection as a child, and you might get a bunch of antibiotics, and you might live in a country where we really favor sterility. We clean everything with bleach and over-sterilize everything, and you didn't get exposure to harmless germs. And then there was stress, and then there was some other health issues. All of these things can start driving that autoimmune process forward. So can things like poor nutrition, lack of sleep, lack of exercise, too much stress, and of course, toxins. And the toxins is the one we don't talk about. And so that's why I think it's so important that we have this discussion today. And when I think about different treatments for MS, I'm always thinking about upstream and downstream. And let me explain to you what that is. Let's go back. So downstream treatments are things that we do in Western medicine. We look at your symptoms and we match it to a drug, right? So when you go see your neurologist who tells you you have a diagnosis of MS, they will decide which downstream treatment is best for you, right? That drug isn't really doing anything to change the underlying conditions that led you to autoimmunity and MS. We in integrative and functional medicine talk about upstream strategies. What are the things that are driving this process forward? What if we could stop them or slow them down? Would this person have less symptoms? Absolutely. Now, both approaches are important. I'm not an anti-medication physician. I think that to get as a person myself living with MS, I want myself and my patients to have the very best outcomes. So whatever you decide with your neurologist with the medications, great, wonderful, do that. And then I want you to not miss out on all the other things. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about toxins and MS. When I talk about toxins, I'm talking about man-made compounds that are developed by scientists and chemists and put into all kinds of things that we use, like our personal care products, cleaning products, building materials, furniture, things that we spray our homes and our food with to keep the bugs away. So they're everywhere. You can't escape them. Another feature of these toxins is that they're long-lasting. They are intentionally made to hang around. Otherwise, your TV would disintegrate on you after a year or two, right? But you can own a TV and then go throw it in a landfill and it'll just be there. It won't maybe look perfect, but those molecules are still attached to each other and it still looks like a TV. It did not biodegrade. So they're long lasting. They have really long half-lives. And that matters because when it gets into our bodies, they hang out in our bodies for a long time. So because we know they're widespread, we know that we're all exposed. Because they're long lasting, we know that that exposure remains. And here's the other thing. Toxins actually interact with each other. And 1 + 1 is no longer 2. It could be 3, 4, or 5, right? They have this synergistic activity. When two bad things get together, they do a lot of badness together. And there is lots of data that links toxic exposures from these man-made compounds to the onset and progression of MS. And I've linked one of the articles here, but what they did was they looked at people with MS versus, matched controls that didn't have MS. And these people actually had higher exposures to pesticides. In fact, they looked at agricultural workers who work in farms where pesticides are being sprayed every day. There was an increased risk of getting a diagnosis of MS. VOCs also are volatile organic compounds, things like paint thinner, they usually have a smell to them, I know you guys aren't smelling paint thinner all the time, but maybe you're spraying perfume or other scented things. Those are also volatile organic compounds. And they looked at people who were in the shoe and leather industry who were coming in contact with a lot of VOCs. And it was noted that the rate of MS increased in that population. Same thing with heavy metals, mercury in areas, there's a region in Iran that has really high rate levels of contamination with mercury. I think it's in Esfahan, and they also have increased rates of MS. So these things do matter, right? And people always send me like these articles about mercury is the reason I have MS, right? I don't know if it's the only reason. I think it's part of the reason, right? There are many hits along the timeline that make you arrive at a diagnosis of MS. So what if we could minimize our exposures to these things? Would that make things better? Would that slow down that progression towards autoimmunity? And I think of the immune system as very dynamic. It's not like you're stuck with autoimmunity to the same degree when you have it. You can shift back and forth towards having more autoimmunity or less autoimmunity. And the things we're going to talk about hopefully will push you towards less autoimmunity. Okay, so what do toxins do to us? What do they do to human health? Well, they damage mitochondria, and there's lots of evidence of this. These mitochondria are the parts of the cell that produce energy for us to fuel our bodies. And when they don't work, the symptoms you might get are fatigue, brain fog, pain, headaches, anxiety, depression, muscle pain, palpitations. So those are signs of a damaged mitochondria. And if I just said a bunch of words that you were like, yep, I have a few of those things, it's something to consider if you're going to take an upstream approach. How do we get the mitochondria to work better? Toxins can disrupt hormones. They can also disrupt our gut microbiome. These are the good, friendly bugs that live in our large intestine that do a lot for us that we don't know how to do for ourselves. And just in the last decade, we've learned so much about them, and they do play a role in the onset and progression of autoimmune diseases. Gut inflammation is another one, where just the lining of the GI tract can get inflamed and you can get what's leaky gut. And this has a lot to do with the immune system, because the immune system, so much of it sits right there in the gut. And toxins can actually dysregulate our immune systems. And a dysregulated immune system is one that has forgotten the rules. So it doesn't quite know when to turn on inflammation and when to turn it off, or when to attack something and when to not attack something. And so when you get dysregulated and confused, maybe one day you start attacking myelin. But I think to a great degree, a lot of the bullet points on this page are reversible to some degree, maybe not completely, but it's worth trying, I think. Okay, so when toxins impact human health, how does that show up? For sure, autoimmunity and inflammation, and symptoms like brain fog and fatigue, difficulty concentrating, your mood is off, you can't sleep. When you eat, you're bloated, you're constipated, you have abdominal pain, you have reflux and indigestion, and that's just a few examples, okay? It could really be anything. So when we talk about how to treat MS, remember I said you can work upstream or downstream, and I prefer you work both ways, okay? So yes, you can use medications to treat this downstream symptoms, but it's really important to work upstream, because if we can remove the things that are harmful to the body and put in the things that are useful to the body, we will start to support our mitochondria to produce more energy for us. We will bring hormones into balance. We'll get the good bugs to come back into the gut microbiome. We will heal the gut, and the immune system can actually get more regulated, meaning it can lessen that propensity towards autoimmunity. Okay, so in functional medicine, we don't go after each bullet on this page one by one. What we do is we basically work on putting in all of the good things that the body needs, take away the bad things, and the body will actually restore itself, because that's what it's actually designed to do. So we think a lot about healthy food, restorative sleep, movement every day, moving your body, exercising daily, managing stress. And today we're going to focus on toxins. So there's two strategies I want to bring to your attention. Number one, let's limit what we put into our body. We're going to talk about how to do that. And let's get the liver to be more efficient in working on getting these things out of the body. There are, in functional medicine, we do also use natural supplements and complementary therapies, things like acupuncture, for example, but it's really not the focus of what I do day to day with patients. 95% of my effort is spent on lifestyle, because that's where you're going to get your most bang for your buck. Okay, this is a scary diagram, but it might actually be my favorite diagram of all time. And let me see if I can make my picture smaller. There we go. Okay, this is the slide where I had to just sit back one day and go, okay, this is the proof that food is medicine. And unfortunately, I can't show you my cursor because the original way I wanted to share my slides isn't working. But I will just stick with me, and I'm going to break down this diagram for you. The gray blob you see in the background is the liver. What you see in blue are some of the reactions in the liver. On the very left side, you see toxins, and we're talking mainly about fat-soluble toxins, molecules that are fatty and they like to hang out in fat. I always think of like olive oil and vinegar, right? There's certain things that want to hang out in the olive oil, and there's certain things that want to hang out in the vinegar. We're talking about the olive oil piece here. Okay, so in order for a toxin that's fat-soluble to start getting changed to a different compound so that it can be removed from the body, you have to do what's called a phase 1 reaction. And you could see the word phase 1 to the right of the blue circle that says toxins. And what this reaction does is it takes that fat soluble reaction and turns it into something that's less fat soluble. So if you look to the air in the center of the diagram where it says intermediary stage, below it, it says less fat soluble. Our goal here is to get this thing to become water soluble so we could pee it out or poop it out or sweat it out. Okay. So then you have this intermediate stage where this molecule is a highly reactive, dangerous molecule. This intermediary stage is a molecule that likes to bounce around and damage cells and protein and fat and DNA. You got to get rid of this molecule quickly. It's naturally occurring, but we got to be able to get rid of it. And the way you do that is, if you look to the right, it says phase 2. And phase 2 is the second reaction that has to happen to take that dangerous molecule to what's called waste products now, right? And that's water. And now this is something water soluble that can be removed from the body. So we took something fat soluble on the left side in the blue circle. We did a phase 1 reaction. Then we got to the dangerous molecule in the center. That's called the intermediary stage. And then we did a phase 2 reaction, okay? That basically neutralized that dangerous molecule and made it water soluble, okay? Now it likes to hang out in the vinegar. Okay, so I want to bring your attention to what's written under the word phase 1. Look at what's required for you to be able to take that toxin to the intermediary stage. It's B vitamins, it's glutathione, which is an antioxidant, it's flavonoids that are found in a lot of plant-based foods, and tea, it's phospholipids like good fats. Those are the things the liver needs to be able to do this hard work of detox, to be able to do phase 1. Okay, so this is why you have to eat foods that flood you with these wonderful nutrients. Now, if you hop on over to where it says phase 2, this is really, really important, because if you can't do a phase 2 reaction, you are stuck with that dangerous molecule at the intermediary stage. And then look right below phase 2. What does it say? What do you need to be able to do phase 2? Well, it says amino acids, and those are the building blocks for protein. And this is why nutrition matters. If you don't have enough protein in you, either you're not eating it or you have a gut problem and you're not absorbing it, you will become stuck with that dangerous molecule, which will go around and damage many things. So I would never detox a patient who's malnourished, specifically for this reason, because I will do more damage than good. They will have that intermediary stage molecule bounce around, damage everything, and I've done now more harm than good. So this is why nutrition matters. So once you've got your protein building blocks in you, you can take it to the waste products, that's water soluble, and look at all the different routes that our body uses to get stuff out of the body. Look at bile on the left, followed by feces or stool. This is why constipation is a bad thing, because your liver can do all this hard work, but if you can't get that stuff out every day, you're going to have a backup of these molecules. Next, you'll see the kidneys and urine, and we actually urinate out a lot of toxins. And so this is why hydration is so important. You'll want to be drinking adequately so that you can continually flush your kidneys and remove stuff. Again, if your kidneys break down or you don't have good kidney function, toxins will back up in you. And then all the way to the right, through skin, we sweat. In fact, sweat might be a more useful and efficient way of removing certain toxins like heavy metals. Just remember, if you're exercising and you sweat, if you are using a sauna, you got to wipe this stuff off, because you'll just reabsorb those toxins back in. Okay, and then one final thing I want to point out on this slide is under intermediary stage, below it, it says antioxidant protective nutrients. And there's a bunch of things you are probably familiar with, like vitamin A, CoQ10, vitamin C, vitamin E, selenium, copper, zinc, etc. Where do those things come from? They come from food, right? So This is why we need to use food as the basis, as the foundation for detox. This is the slide that proves why that is true. Okay, so as part of this talk today, when I lured you here, I told you I was going to give you the foods that are going to help support detox. I will never give you a list of foods. You're never going to hear from me like top 10 foods for detox. I think that does you a disservice because that means what's not on the list is not important. If I had to give you a list, there would be 1,000 things on it. So what I want you to focus on is big picture, right? Concepts, and then you get to personalize that information for yourself. So I want you to think about eating lots and lots of plant-based foods. And that doesn't mean you have to become a vegetarian or vegan, but the majority of your foods, like 80%, should come from plants because you will flood yourself with vitamins and minerals, phytonutrients, which are the colorful molecules that you see in the picture there. That's where a lot of the antioxidants are and a lot of the vitamins and nutrients. So I don't want you to focus on just foods and lists. I just want you to go to the store, pick a lot of color and bring it in. Hopefully you get every color of the rainbow every day. And a plant-based diet is anti-inflammatory and it's full of antioxidants, which protect your cells. I want you to eat a lot of protein. And by a lot, I don't mean like overdoing it. I mean like taking your weight in pounds. If you're 120 pounds, you take 1/3 of that, which is about 40, and that's the minimum amount of protein you should get per day. And then I'd add maybe 20% to that. So, you know, a 120-pound person may get somewhere between 40 to 50 grams of protein a day. Definitely not like 100, right? Some people are doing like 100 because they feel like they have to. Too much protein is not a good thing. So, and when you do protein, hopefully you pick mostly plant-based ones because they're cleaner. They have less toxins in them. And I've given you a little list there. So if there are foods there like seeds or quinoa or things that you're not already eating and you're not sensitive to them, then by all means, go ahead and start incorporating those into your diet. And then making sure you drink enough water. I always tell people half your weight in pounds. If you're 120 pounds, you drink 60 ounces of water a day. Remember, we got to get the kidneys to flush this stuff out. And then I want to talk to you about fiber because it's so important. The American diet is so low in fiber, and hopefully none of you are on the standard American diet, which has maybe 10 to 15 grams of fiber. We should really be getting like 30 grams a day, minimum 25 grams a day. So there's two kinds of fiber. There's soluble and insoluble, and both of them do actually help with grabbing toxins and getting them out of the body. Think of soluble fiber as the inside of the apple and the insoluble fiber as that tougher skin on the outside. So when you eat your foods, fruits and vegetables, if you don't have to peel them, I'd rather you get all of that insoluble fiber on the outside too. And then we talk a lot about prebiotics and probiotics. So I'll mainly talk about prebiotics, which are the right kind of fiber that our microbiome likes as a fuel source. So these are, again, green leafy vegetables, bananas, kiwis, onion, and garlic. So if you can get a lot of prebiotics, which are fibrous foods, if you can eat these foods, your microbiome will just restore itself, right? So I'm less interested in you getting a stool transplant or a probiotic supplement to bring the good bugs back in. I want you to try the upstream approach of putting in the prebiotics, eating the foods that are fermented to start building up your microbiome. And then a lot of those imbalances will start correcting themselves. And, you know, one other thing I want to also mention is we think of the liver as our detox organ, but really, truly, our microbiome actually does a lot of detox for us. So another reason why we should care about the health of our microbiome. Okay. And then, okay, so people always ask, can I just take a supplement to promote detox? I mean, you can do anything you want. I just don't think that's the best way to do it. If you don't have good nutrition on board, I don't think you're going to get the benefits of that detox supplement. Always, always food first. Sometimes I think it's appropriate to use the detox supplements because somebody's really sick, right? But I think it should always also be done under the supervision of somebody who understands how to, you know, promote or to actually do a detox. Do juice cleanses work? I don't think so. I think temporarily, but detox is something you want to do for life. It's something you want to practice every day. And a juice cleanse is not sustainable. When you juice something and you take the fiber out, you actually made that thing very sugary. So remember, you need nutrients and you need fiber, and there's not a lot of fiber or protein in juice. So I'd rather you do a smoothie over a juice, but remember, got to eat a lot of different foods. Water fasts, I think they can be appropriate sometimes for a few days, especially when people who have worked up to it. However, remember, for detox, you need protein, you need vitamins and minerals and fiber, and water doesn't have any of those things. So a short fast is fine, but not prolonged. So again, always food first, for the reasons we discussed. So here are some other strategies beyond nutrition, because nutrition's one tool. It's maybe one of the main tools for detox, but there's so many other things actually that go into it. So sleep is actually non-negotiable when it comes to detox. Among all of the data around sleep promoting detox, one of the most compelling reasons to sleep 8 to 9 hours a night is because the brain detoxes much more efficiently while you're sleeping than during your waking hours. So there's data that people who sleep 8 to 9 hours actually have lower rates of dementia and Alzheimer's. We don't have medications to prevent Alzheimer's, nor do we have supplements, but we do have sleep. Exercise supports the microbiome, believe it or not. When you move your body and exercise, you end up having a healthier microbiome. And remember, the microbiome does detox for you. You also sweat when you exercise. You can also sweat using an infrared sauna for about 10 minutes a day if you are not heat sensitive. Now, this isn't always an option for those of us with MS who can't tolerate the increase in body temperature. And that's okay, because there's so many other tools. And then another tool for detox is reducing stress, building better coping skills, and building emotional resilience. Stress turns on autoimmunity. I think most of us with MS know that when we're stressed is when we get our flares. Maybe not that same day, but it could be a week or a month or a few months after. I think there's a really close relationship there. But again, when you manage stress better, you end up having a healthier microbiome. So you do more detox, hormones come back into balance, which balances the liver and everything else. So it all matters. And then, we talked about how the liver churns stuff out to get it out of the body, but actually a really foundational approach is, what about putting less stuff into our bodies, right? There are so many things that we can do to minimize what gets in through breathing, through touch, through eating. Those are the three main ways that toxins enter our bodies. So if you can invest in a water filter, a reverse osmosis is the best you can do. Filter your tap water and drink that and use that for cooking. Do not use bottled water because it's sitting in plastic and there's microplastics floating around in there, and you really don't need that in your body. HEPA filters. Oh, that kind of doesn't look right. What I think I meant was HEPA air filter to filter the air in your home. We should use these definitely during wildfires, because when those particles get in, we actually cause inflammation in the body. On our website, actually on truemedicinems.com, we have our favorite air filter on there. Avoiding plastics is another one, right? Getting glass or stainless steel. Eating organic to the extent possible. Eating less animal products. And when you do eat animal products, choose low fat, because a lot of toxins like to hang out in the fat. So when you eat that animal fat, you get the toxins in your fat. So it just transfers into you. Avoid eating large fish that have a lot of mercury in them. So, there's a website called seafoodwatch.org that can tell you what are the best sources and types of fish. When you have a pest problem, don't spray your home with big gun pesticides and herbicides. I hope nobody's using Roundup. There's so much data that it's just bad for us. It causes lymphoma. It throws off the immune system, causes inflammation. So we shouldn't be using them. If you have neighbors, maybe gently tell them, when you use it, it gets into our house too. Other things to do: don't wear shoes in the house. We did an Instagram live last week on how to set up your home so that you don't, people park their shoes outside and you don't bring toxins into your home. When you're in the market for bedding or furniture, choose organic, non-toxic options. Just invest in a few key pieces. Don't buy a bunch of stuff. Just, it's going to be more expensive. Usually it's not even that much more, but we want you to, create a sleeping space that's non-toxic and promotes health. When you're looking at toys for kids, choose non-toxic ones, like wooden ones. Like, don't get all the stuff with the colors and the things, the plastic that they put in their mouth. Also, furniture products, building materials, also go for non-toxic. And then for personal care products, there's so much that we put on our bodies. There's studies by the Environmental Working Group that the average woman steps out of the house with almost 300 chemical compounds on her body. I know that sounds shocking, but if you think about how many things are in your shampoo, conditioner, mascara, lipstick, deodorant, perfume, whatever you're using, it can easily get to 300. So with that, I am going to say have a great weekend, and I look forward to hearing from you all. So stay in touch with us. Have a great day.